because the race hadn't officially started, apparently the clock hadn't started, but then something happened and the clock did start. So
So you then see a Red Bull garage engineer literally diving to the toolbox and tripping over because that's how fast that they were trying to like get this shit done,
yeah.
which was pretty crazy as well. So at least we had like little bits of entertainment, but there was also all of that. Hi guys, welcome back to On the Chicane. You're here with me, Paris, and my co-host Mariam, and we're going to talk to you today about the craziness that just was the Belgian Grand Prix. I don't know if we can call it quite a race because it wasn't a race. So yeah, I feel like it was a bit of a parade, but we're going to try and talk about it anyway, and yeah, we'll see where we go with that. Um, so starting off the conversation, Mariam, do you want to like tell us a little bit about Spa? I know you did a tiny little bit of research about it this week. Was there anything interesting that kind of came up about the track that we should know?
Um, I don't know. Everything, I suppose, is kind of well known. I did an article, I'm not going to say for who, but I did a written piece this week that was talking about facts and stats of the Belgian Grand Prix and just its history and looking at the circuit and the track. And yeah, I mean, without telling you where to go find the piece, it's really interesting because there's such a rich history with the Belgian Grand Prix. It's been around for God knows how long. And yeah, there were many years where the race didn't actually happen because it was really, really scary. A really fast track. There's been many changes that have been made to the track. I think originally, if I'm not getting my stats wrong, because I've done this for Zandvoort and Monza this week, so just making sure I'm talking about the right track. Um, I think originally the track connected three towns.
Okay.
Can't remember. Anyway, it was originally like 15 kilometers long, really long track. And since then, obviously, they've condensed it down, but it's still the longest track on the grid. Um, yeah, Eau Rouge, Rodillion, they're like iconic parts of the track, but again, very scary. And I think that was
Yeah,
obviously just really obvious with what happened to Lando and what happened in the W series as well. And
literally.
obviously, yeah, the accident that happened 2 years ago. So I don't know, maybe there'll be more calls for changes to happen to this track. I don't know
I
how.
think that was pretty much the conversation, wasn't it? Around like especially after yesterday with what happened with Lando and Quali, the start of Q3, Lando crashed out and had a really bad shunt to the point where he had to get checked over. Thankfully, he was all right. But again, just the conversations were around whether or not the track needs to be changed, whether or not the barriers need to be changed in order to stop people from like smashing the barriers and ending up back on the track, because we have seen so many accidents there recently. Like Mariam said, we had the W Series pileup, which involved 5 or 6 cars on Friday during their quali. You had Jack Aitken in the Spa 24 Hours race, which was in, I think, July. He ended up in hospital with like broken collarbones and shit. And then obviously, rest in peace, Anton Hubert, who passed away 2 years ago at the track. So that was a massive conversation leading into the weekend, knowing that it's going to be a wet race. Like Mariam said, it's the longest race on the calendar, and so many things could happen, even just with this one kind of corner or this one section of the track. So yeah, I think we were all a bit braced for how the weekend could turn out, even before the wet stuff happened today.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, rich history for this track and lots of incidents that have happened. But let's quickly throw it back to Quali yesterday because Quali kind of set the scene for today. Obviously, today was like a non-race race. But talking about Quali, it was a wet session.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's important to highlight. So it was wet for pretty much the whole time. I mean, it's been wet for pretty much the whole weekend
Oh,
at Belgium. So, the Ferraris lost out, ending up kind of going out in Q2. Sorry, Maz. So, that in a sense that kind of already put the pack slightly out of whack of how it would normally be. But you then ended up with Russell kind of making it into Q3 and Lando then crashing out. He would have probably also made it quite high because he was doing really well in Q1 and Q2, and he was quite high on the timesheets. So I think the expectation was that Lando was going to be super high, Verstappen was going to be super high. Maybe Hamilton might come in there at the last second and do what he normally does and pull out an amazing, just like an amazing performance. But what ended up happening, and I literally was screaming at my screen, Russell at one point was just pulling out purple sectors like a crazy man. And everybody was going wild because, quite frankly, it was Valtteri Bottas's birthday yesterday. And he was getting shown up a little bit by George Russell. And, we know what's going on at the moment with Mercedes and them trying to make the decision. So it was a bit crazy to just see George topping that timesheets. And there was a moment where we all thought he was going to be on pole, but Verstappen took it. So I think, we're not going to dwell too much on quali because it really led into what was supposed to be the race today. And, you've got the front grid, you've got the front of the grid, you've got Verstappen, followed by Russell, followed by Hamilton. And everybody's just thinking, what on earth is going to happen into that first corner? But they line up on the grid. And then, do you want to talk about the race and how it kind of started or didn't?
yeah, so the race was due to start at 2 p.m. our time, so 3 p.m. local time, Belgium. Everyone kind of set up on the grid. So initially there were 5-minute intervals of delays, and then it got to 2 and the cars lined up on the grid. The rain was coming down heavy, and they did the formation lap under the safety car, and then actually realized Michael Massey was like, we can't start the race, it's not safe enough. The spray was insane. Everyone was saying that there was zero visibility, except from Max, who was obviously at the front of the pack and was saying it's fine for me. But obviously he's at the front where there was people behind him and the spray was hitting them. They were all saying there was zero visibility. They were aquaplaning. It just wasn't safe. I think Giovinazzi was like, these are not drivable conditions. So they red flagged the session. Because the race hadn't officially started, apparently the clock hadn't started, but then something happened and the clock did start. So then obviously with races, I think there's a 3-hour time limit. So if the race isn't completed within that time, then that's just it. Like whatever is the classification is the classification. No, wait. That being said, that's only if they manage to race 2 laps or more. They hadn't raced any laps. They'd only done the formation lap. So I don't know how. I think the rules were kind of being made up as we were going along.
That's exactly what I was tweeting. I was sitting there thinking, do the FIA even know what's going on right now? Because it seems a little bit unclear. It seems like they're a little bit unclear. The commentators were like, okay, it's technical regulations. If we do this, it's FIA codes. If we do this, I'm like, okay, but which one is it? Are we racing right now? Has the clock started? Is the 3-hour clock started? And then Michael Massey came back in and said, yes, the 3-hour clock has started. So they started it. But then they decided after 2 hours that they could pause the clock due to force majeure, which is one of my favorite words as an architect because we use it a lot in our legal stuff. Due to force majeure, the race was paused, like this is countdown, pause the clock there for a second, and then that allowed them to still have to save an hour for if they could resume the race and do the 2 laps that Marion just said, then they could still potentially, do number of laps under the hour, or they could do at least the 2 laps and get some sort of race classification. So there was a lot of confusion, basically.
Yeah, everyone was confused. I think even Michael Massey himself was confused. It seemed like it. So anyway, after like an hour of waiting around and like a lot of tweeting and just there's a lot going on Twitter and social media, which actually kept us all entertained, I think. If you haven't seen it yet, Seb and Mick were seen slash filmed playing football in the Haas garage, which was really cute. But yeah, it was just like everyone was kind of just getting a bit bored. But it was quite entertaining because we were all in it together on social media. And then yeah, suddenly before you know it, it gets to like like 5 o'clock, and they're like, okay, fine, the race is starting at 17 minutes past. So Michael Massey and the team had like seen there was going to be a little window where there was going to be a bit of a break in the weather. So they thought we'll start the race and try and get at least a couple of laps in under the safety car. So the race started at 17 minutes past 5/6 in Belgium. And again, they're under the safety car. I think they managed to do what, 2-3 laps, and then
Yeah, I think it was 3.
yeah, and then they just decided no, this isn't working. So they came back to the pits. Everyone kind of lined up again, and then it took them another, I want to say like half an hour, 40 minutes to be like, okay, fine, we're red flagging. The race is not restarting. This is it. So essentially, quali is the order that everyone finished in, which means that George Russell got his first podium without racing.
His first podium. Perez, who crashed on the way to the formation lap.
Another thing, yes.
Because he ended up having to restart from the pit lane. Also, that was a whole nother confusion. Sorry, confusion 2 of the race. So because Perez crashed and they retired the car, so his race engineer was like, we're retiring from the race. But then because he thought that they were going to restart the race straight away, so they would obviously never have been able to repair the car in time, he said, let's just like retire the car, whatever. But then as soon as they realized that the race was going to be red flagged for a much longer period than they thought, so it was getting into like, I don't know, 40 minutes or so, they actually had a conversation which was broadcast with the Michael Massey, and they asked him if they could bring Perez into the race. So at first Michael Massey was like, no, you guys retired. But then they said they found some rule that basically said that because the race hadn't started officially when they retired, that they could bring him back into the race. He would just end up starting from the pit lane because of the changes. So you then see a Red Bull garage engineer literally diving to the toolbox and tripping over because that's how fast that they were trying to like get this shit done.
Yeah.
Which was pretty crazy as well. So at least we had like little bits of entertainment, but there was also all of that. And then that affected the race order at the end, because with Perez starting from where he started from, it allowed lots of people to move up into the points from before. So Ferrari's got some points, don't worry.
Ferrari have points. Williams also have double points. Seb finished 5th, which is, good. Ricardo as well finished 4th. I think that's his first time this year. Yeah, both the Ferraris are in the points. Gasly 6th, Ocon 7th, Latifi 9th. Just, yeah, so the order is strange. Obviously no Perez and no Bottas in the points, so it's a bit crappy for both of the teams. However, I think Hamilton's still leading the championship because it was only half points that were awarded by this point, because the clock was running, it meant that the laps were going down. So if they had raced a full race, it would have been like 39 laps or something like that. So honestly, it just made no sense. And I would definitely recommend watching the highlights, because yeah, we can't make sense of it. You probably won't be able to make sense of it. Like I said, Michael Massey didn't seem like he could make sense of it. I don't think anyone really knows what happened today, but there you go.
I think especially if you're like a beginner, if you're a beginner watching this video and you haven't really ever kind of experienced how crazy Formula One technical directives and like FIA codes and all that stuff can get, this is probably an interesting race just to see it from that point of view. How do you feel about like the fact that the race was still classified, and they did these gratuitous 2 laps in order to tidy up the classification and make sure that there was a classification for Belgium, but I feel like that came at a slight detriment to the championship. Even Helmut Marko and his greedy ass self was like, this is not the way we would have wanted to have won the race. So if he's even saying that, and you know that man will take as many points as he can bloody get, then I think they made a wrong decision here.
Yeah, to be honest, I do think it's a bit of a farce because at the end of the day, Formula One fundamentally is racing. Obviously, safety is the number one priority, and I completely agree with the decision to not go racing today. But you can't give points based on no racing just to mark it as a classified like race. I don't think that makes sense. It kind of goes against the core, like what Formula One is. Like I said, it's racing, and we didn't race today. So it just seems like points were just given out just to be like, well done for doing your homework, like, and that's it. But I don't think that it's fair. That being said, I know there'll probably be people that are like, yeah, but George Russell just got his first ever podium. I don't even think George would have, as an actual athlete, it does seem like a bit of a pathetic way almost to win, to take home points. I'm sure this isn't the way that Russell would have wanted his first podium. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I agree with it. And I think I would have just called it off completely and just been like, okay, Belgium wasn't a race in this season. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like personally, if they had awarded points for qualifying, because they say like this is why qualifying is so important because you never know what could happen race Sunday, and like that's why you have to put your best foot forward. And George did, like he did amazingly well. No one can take that away from him. Did super. But to say that that would have converted to a podium is not necessarily factual. And then winning a podium in that way, especially after he's done like Sakir, where he definitely like super deserved that. I guess it's like, because he didn't get Sakir, maybe you could say his luck's finally turning around and he got handed a podium that balances that out, and karma of the universe kind of thing. But I just think, the drivers probably wouldn't be happy, like Mariam said, as an athlete to kind of win or secure points and stuff in that way. And I completely agree. I feel like they were cancelling it. They should have just cancelled it and moved on to the Dutch Grand Prix next week, or try to do a race tomorrow or something like that. I don't feel like they should have just handed out half points just for like 2 laps that weren't even done in a genuine manner. It's not even like they did 2 laps and then, okay, the race had to get cancelled because it got red flagged, blah, blah, blah. Like they sent them out to do those 2 laps under the safety car as if they didn't like do that. So I don't know, it was a bit of bull, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree, to be honest. And I don't think that the Belgian Grand Prix for this year should be classified as a race, but it is. So, I guess we move on to Zandvoort, the Dutch Grand Prix, which is back after 30 something years. The last race in Zandvoort was in 1985. So we're back this year. Obviously, it's going to be a sea of orange, which, whatever. Yeah, but let's see how that goes. I'm really hoping that Hamilton can kind of pull it back. Mercedes, I feel like, always seem to do better in the second half of the season. It is a track, however, that has no driver experience. There's banked corners, so it's going to be insane. Lots of sand dunes around, so it's going to be very dusty, but I'm excited to see how it plays out. So yeah.
How beautiful will it be if Hamilton takes his 100th podium at the Dutch Grand Prix?
Please.
That would be so beautiful.
Yeah.
Max fans, if you're watching this video, cuss us out. You don't really care. But literally, like, I just think I want next week's Grand Prix to actually be a race. And I want us to see Lewis and Max kind of battle it out and really see some good racing next week. I think we've been denied it for a few races now. With all the crashes that happened in the Hungarian Grand Prix and then this happening, like I just want to see some clean racing start to finish. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how they take the banked corners actually at Zandvoort. It's going to be really interesting. So yeah, I guess we'll catch you then.
Yeah, usually at this point we would do our winners and losers of the race. I don't think that we're going to do that this week simply because I don't think there was any genuine winners other than George Russell. I feel like he's the only person that was super lucky, and he pulled out an amazing performance yesterday, and would easily have been, for the portion of what we've seen, the winner of the race. So I think that's kind of covered it. But other than that, we will see you next week. It's going to be 3 races back to back, so we're going to be here. Make sure you're here with us. Make sure you're subscribed to all of our social media, so Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, On the Chicane. And we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.